with our author today. We have E. Anders, who is the author of the Perfect Calamity series. Thank you for joining. Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, girl, you can hold the mic.
Oh.
So, I guess, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your series?
Yeah, I can do that. I'm ready for this. Quiet? Is it too quiet? Oh, there you go. All right. So my name's E. Anders, and I write romantasy. My series is The Earth and Calamities. The first book is called Blood on the Taiga, and my world is set on Earth, but all fantasy, mythology, folklore, myths, legends, and everything became real in a single moment. Everything went chaotic, crazy, apocalypses, the whole nine. And then the book starts 200 years later, and every story is about love, finding hope in the darkness, and then, fantasy, adventure, myths, magic, and what our world would look like. We'll see familiar faces, gods and legends that you know about from Earth mythology, and then some new stuff, because we had 200 years for all sorts of new hybrids, demi-humans, and all sorts of crazy new stuff.
So, I guess, how did you come up with this kind of work?
Part of what I wanted to do was, one of the hardest things as a writer for me personally is world building, because it takes a lot of time to do the research, it takes a lot of time to build all the details of making a fantasy world. So I wanted to come up with a place where I could keep coming back to, because I wanted to be able to write books and keep writing books, maybe 2 a year that I could publish for readers, so I could keep people coming back and enjoying the world with me. So when I set out to make the Earth and Calamity worlds, I wanted to make a place that was large in scope, that had a lot of places I could go to and visit. It reminds me kind of when I was younger, I read a lot of Dungeons and Dragons books, like Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance. You could think more like the expanded universe and like Star Wars IP, where they have the books that just go everywhere in the Star Wars world that the that the main movies don't cover, and now we've even seen, the expanded universe and the TV shows and stuff like that. So having a world large like that, where you can kind of go and keep visiting and expanding out, and not having to, recreate the world for every single book, because then it takes, like 2 or 3 years to write a book instead of, 6 to 9 months to write a book.
So speaking of that, how many books are in your series right now?
Right now there are 3 novels out and 2 shorter novellas.
So with this, you have a lot of characters, a lot of people in this world. Who would you say is your favorite character and why?
I think my favorite is probably Gunnar. He was the he's the main point of view for Blood on the Taiga, which is the first book. Gunnar is a vile blood, which is a descendant of Lamashtu, the mother of monsters, and Lucifer Morningstar. So they came together and decided they wanted to create a curse that would wipe out all of humanity. And the vile
does.
As one does, right? And the vile blood are their offspring that are cursed, and their genetics and their blood and this curse that they have will kill any humans that, any woman becomes. It's a romantasy, if a woman becomes pregnant through this curse, it'll kill. Mm-hmm. So it causes some problems with the love interest in the first book, who is human. Right. So he kind of, he has a chip on his shoulder, and the vile bloods are not very fondly looked upon by society, because humans are almost extinct, and no one knows what happens if humans go extinct, because they're considered the dreamers. They created, humans came up with all myths, legends. So if the dreamers die, what happens to magic? So everyone's very invested in protecting the humans. So he has a bit of a chip on his shoulder. He's kind of the grumpy, broody alpha male. But he's also got a soft spot for our heroine, who is the young human girl he saved as a child, who comes back then to rescue him from being in prison simply for being a vile woman. And I would say, if I were to...
how would you describe him?
Yeah, how would I describe him? I would say if Vin Diesel of like the early 2000s had a baby with Adam Driver, that would be Dom.
So, for pretty apt description. I guess I can go with that one. So I guess like thinking about this, you have a really large world, and you're trying to expand it. Like, where else do you see it going from here?
So the first book and the second book, Blood of the Tiger and First and the Tiger, are both centered mostly in Siberia. They end up most of the time is spent out on this outcast town of monsters in a old Russian town called Nizhny, where they're kind of rebuilding this, island of misfit toys, where they're trying to form this new life and new way of living that's for all these kind of people no one wants around in the more civilized pockets that people have rebuilt around the world. The third book, Feathers of Trials and Truth, it starts in Portugal and ends up in part of Spain, and that group has a lot Aztec mythology, and then the Portuguese legends, and the main character in that book is half Inuit. So I'm trying to kind of go around, touch on a lot of mythologies from around the world, trying to bring in a lot of different things, and trying to not just use, European mythology, or trying to there's so much interesting stuff out there that we don't see in media all the time that I'm hoping I do justice to it, and make it interesting and bring in like monsters we haven't heard of, and deities and folklore in lesser known regions. And in the fourth book, they end up in the Australian outback for part of the journey. So that's another place we're going. And the fifth book will actually be in South America in Panama.
So you're extending over to the land where everything naturally wants to kill you, and now you're going to up that ante a little bit more. So I guess, like, thinking about this, who would you have a lot of different deities and monsters and gods in here, well, deities and gods. Who would you say is the most challenging to write for you?
Who I've had so far, let's see. That's a good question. It's interesting that you should ask, but one of the most challenging characters I've had to write so far is actually my human main character.
Oh, wow.
Because I really set out to write, we're living in this very tumultuous time right now, the very, very difficult timeline we're all in, and I really wanted to write stories where there's like hope and kindness and like positive things that are rewarded, and those things are like, even if it's a difficult path to walk, that we see like rewards and virtues and positive outlooks happening in those stories. The outcomes are good. And so writing the human character is a person who believes in those things and walks that path, even though in some ways she seems naive sometimes, or it means she's not your sword-wielding, kick-ass, fighter hero. She's a quiet hero who's strong because of like her convictions. And so it's challenging in the especially in romantasy, the kick-ass heroine is definitely really popular right now. The quieter heroine is not. So, but she's a little challenging to write because I do really love that, get out there, sword-wielding, butt-kicking lady. So writing her, because I started with Gunnar as my protagonist, and she was a fool to him, and then her point of view became the second book. So it was really a little bit of a challenge to have that softer character and have her carry a book with that kind of kindness really being like the driving factor of what made a character strong. It was really a challenge to write and really enjoyable. And I like her a lot, and I think she's a good character in a time where there is a lot of dark fantasy and a lot of dark fiction. It was a challenge to write that alongside some of the darker stories. I hope people enjoy it and it resonates to have some of that. mixed in.
So we talked about Gunnar and Audrey. These are characters of our first two books. Now you kind of flipped it over in the third one. Now we kind of moved to a whole new kind of layout with the Expeditionist series. Can you tell us a little about that project?
Yeah, so we have Gunnar and Audrey are the grumpy sunshine fairy, and then when you get to Feathers of Trials and Truth, this is the friends of lover trope, and Lusa is she's a half Tarasque, half Inuit human. So in this mythology, dusters are characters who are part human and part magical blood, whatever they cover. So when anyone looks at her, she disappears. She's not a full-blooded shadow person. That's Tarasque from the Inuit legend. So she doesn't go all the way into the shadow realm of the Inuit people. She just kind of becomes invisible. And then you have Resplendent, who is, he has quasifocal blood, which means he can see through illusions, and he's a powerful illusionist himself. So he becomes the first person that can see. So that's where their friendship develops. And he's a very, he's the showboat, the performer, the fancy guy, and who's never really had a true friend. So they're in that place where it's like, their friendship is more important than a romance would be, but the romance then develops from the deep friendship they develop.
Nice. So you kind of talked about fantasy. You have a lot of different worlds. Why romanticism?
Well, I've always written books that are like the relationship of characters has always been very important, and then I spent some time enjoying fan fiction a lot, and then enjoying getting into the romantasy genre in general, and getting into just romance in general, and enjoying writing sex scenes, and enjoying reading sex scenes, and then it was kind of like, I will say that my books are, like, they have like 2 to 3 sex scenes in them, so they're not all the way down the line of some of the romanticities
that whole slope of everything.
Yeah, they're not, it's not the full focus that's the sex is the driver all the time, which some of the romantasy is. I would say, honestly, that sometimes, I know that fantasy romance is a category, everything gets wishy-washy, which is how you define it, but
yes,
fantasy romance sometimes is like the fantasy's a little more of a driving force than the romance, and I think I'm kind of like in between. If you were to like dictate, I don't know, if someone has a barometer that says if you have this many sex scenes, you're romantasy. If you have this many sex scenes, you're fantasy romance. I don't know who decides that or who does.
You don't know who's on this committee for this one, right?
Right. I don't even know, because then people put peppers, and it's like whose peppers decides what's, and everyone has different peppers that say this pepper says this, but if you go over here, these peppers say that. So sometimes it's hard to know. Everyone's scale is very variable. Yeah. It's up to opinion. So. But I think either way, we kind of put it. But really, it comes down to the characters and the connection between the characters, and I really enjoy exploring the relationships between the people, not being so fundamentally critical that it fits for romantasy, I think, and it's popular right now, and I don't know. I think people connect with it because, just relationships and love and connections are so important that's why I think the genre is so popular anyway, that it makes sense. It fits. They fit. The stories fit.
I would agree. So also, just as a little bit about you, you are a local author.
I am.
All right, and I hear you have a pet of choice. I can't imagine to begin with to guess what it is. Can I tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, my frogs. Could you be talking about frogs?
Possibly frogs.
Where is Pickle?
Yes.
Well, since this is a restaurant, we couldn't bring
Who's Pickle?
Pickle is my African bullfrog. So he's like big. What did you say? My Kristen said he was gourmet hamburgers.
Yes.
What she says. He's like a giant hamburger patty.
He can ride in a backpack. Am I right?
It's kind of a backpack. Yeah, if you go on, if you've ever seen it looks like a space capsule. It's a cat carrier. I bring him around to book signings and that usually. But food safety comes first, so he did not make it to this one.
So who did we have in instead today?
That's Dill, his second cousin twice from the same. No, she can make it Bill the Bear. if anyone's in desperate need of a stuffed frog. But
And how many do you actually have now?
right now I'm at 28 pet frogs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. My bio says 63 because that was the most I had at the time that I made my biography. And then, but the actual most I've ever had is 84. But that's because my...
Aaron, really?
Yeah. Well, my son and I rescue native tadpoles, which are the Pacific horse frogs, the little ones you'll like find in your garden and front yard. So we've raised them a couple different times, and then we have a pond in our backyard, and so we'll just release them out there. So that's the most I've had in my house as pets at any given time. But we've kept some of them back, and that's part of what I have.
So you are the reason for the infestation of frogs in the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, look, lady. This woman has a phobia of critters and won't stick her toes in the ocean.
No.
So I don't think the infestation actually frogs are in decline universally. Amphibians are in decline because of
Frogs are cute.
yeah.
my
Hold on, say that again. I want to get this in me.
Frogs are cute.
Say that again. You heard it here first.
Sometimes. I'll accept pickle because
Have
you
you not
walk in
met
a
Kermit the Frog?
Kermit, yeah.
Okay.
We're going old school now.
Okay, no,
Kermit,
Kermit is...
don't age me.
Nope, if I got one older, Michigan J. Frog, man.
Oh my God, yes, that's the best.
Like, let's go over. You gotta keep it up.
When I interviewed Jocelyn, that was what she pulled out on me. I was like, what's your favorite frog? When I did her author interview, and she pulled him out, and I was like, wow, I'm impressed. Let's call it back.
Your knowledge goes backwards.
I know.
Yes.
Well, does anyone,
Do we have any
from
open questions?
my very wide audience, does anyone have a question?
I'm just excited.
Excited to be here.
Do we get to go read it?
All right. So I guess I always have one. Whenever I interview somebody, I have one question I love to close an interview out on.
Oh, goody.
Which is
Should I be nervous?
cake or pie?
Cake or pie? Pie.
Ooh, okay. So now you know what I have to follow up with, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What pie?
Yes. What pie?
The Sammamish Cafe cherry pie with the crumbly topping, not the flat crust.
Oh, so you're a crumble pie
I'm a
person.
crumble pie. But they have delicious, and it's not just the Sammamish Cafe. There's more cafes around. They have like 6 in the area. Chelsea's not here, or I would bring her out and blame her for my addiction.
Where is she?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to yell at her later.
There you go.
Probably
Stuck in traffic.
Probably, yeah. But yeah, no, I like it.
All right.
It's a good one.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for sitting up here and chatting with us for a while. We have E. Anders, who is our author of the Earth and Calamity series. We have Blood on the Taiga, Curse on the Taiga, and Feathers, Truth, Trials, and Fruits. All available here for purchase. And thanks. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Penny.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye.